With Asp.Net and .NET in general working on Linux environments, all of a sudden there are a lot of Windows developers playing around in Linux. It can be a little bit difficult to get started using some Linux commands. Let's mash on that. Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Asp.NET Monsters. Today is Thanksgiving in Canada, so we're down to a single monster. So we looked a little bit at some of our analytics, and it suggested that people are mildly interested in our Linux videos. So I thought I would just quickly go through and talk about a few Linux commands. Kind of Unix commands, to be more precise, I guess, this is really like the GNU user space on top of Linux. So to give you an idea, I have been using Unixy operating systems since the very early 2000s through university, and then into my first couple of jobs were kind of Unixy related. And what's really nice about that is that all the knowledge that I picked up about using shells back in like the early 2000s is all still applicable today. Stuff from even before that is applicable. Before this video, I pulled out my Unix in a nutshell book here. So this was published in, I don't know this particular version, originally in 1986, this particular version in 1994. And most of the commands in here will work today on any modern Linux system. There's a few things in here that maybe a little bit like System 4 specific, but the basic commands are all going to be just about the same as they were back then. So let me take you through just a few quick commands and how to use them. So you're going to end up here in a prompt. And typically the first thing that you'll want to know is what files are there around me. So I have my prompt here set up to show me the directory that I'm in. So if you don't have that, you can use pwd to tell you what directory you're in here. I'm running everything here inside of WSL2, which is a Linux kernel that runs on top of Windows, which sounds a little bit crazy, and it is, but it works fantastically, and it's really, really useful. So this particular directory is actually mounted, so /mnt is where you typically see things mounted in the file system in Unix. And then there's a drive called C that's kind of mounted here. So if you were to look at kind of normal Windows, the way that it works, you're used to having like a C drive and a D drive, and then a floppy drive that's your A drive if you happen to be really old. In Linux, things are a little bit different. Everything is set around mount points, and the root of the file system is this directory, which is called /, and it contains a bunch of folders, and typically within that you'll see something like this mnt directory, and this will have anything that's mounted on the system. I mean, typically it's not always like that, though. You can take a look and see which drives are mounted by doing df -h, and that'll tell you kind of all of the mount points that are currently running, and the -h prints out the sizes in a human readable format here, so you can see here kind of what mount points I have set up here and how much storage space I have left. So for instance, this C drive here, it's a terabyte drive, and I've used almost out of a terabyte, and I've got slightly less than that available to me, so 53% of it's used, and it's mounted here on /mnt/c. There's a few other special directories in here, like dev is a very interesting one. This is a view into sort of like the things, the hardware that exists on your system. So if you take a look at that, you can take a look at virtual terminals, memory, CPU info, all that sort of interesting stuff. This is maybe a little bit limited once you're in WSL, but if you're on a full Linux system, then you'll get a better view into this here. But I wanted to go through commands. The first one I wanted to talk about was ls, and that is just listing what is in your directory. And there's, of course, a million flags to this. So if I do ls-l, it will print out a little bit more information for me here. So it'll print out things like what the permissions are. And the permissions here are a little bit odd because I'm on a Windows file system that's mounted inside of a Unix file system. So I have basically read, write, and execute on everything here. So the way that the permissions work in Unix is that there's kind of 3 numbers. So a 3-digit number that'll tell you what the permissions are on a directory or a file. And so you can have read, write, and execute on anything. So it'll be, I'm trying to remember the order of this now, world, group, and owner, WGO. But the digits stand for different groups of people. So it could be that you have like a file which is world readable. You can have a file which is just readable to you, or you can have a file that is readable to anybody who shares the same group as you. So again, this is a little bit strange because the owner of this file and the group of this file is me. So I'm in a group that has the same name as me. So the execute bit, that will allow you either to execute a file. So you can think of something like an exe is executable. On Unix, anything can be executable, so you can mark shell scripts as executable or anything like that. And that's what the execute bit is for. It also allows you to go into directories. So that's kind of the way permissions work. We can get some more details here. So this is not a very exciting directory. Let's drop into, there's a directory here called posts. So there's a bunch of files in here. If I do that ls-l again here, then I get all the sizes for these files. And I can sort that by using ls-ls. So that is sorting them by size. So you can see these are like the smaller sizes at the bottom. And as we go up, we get towards bigger files. We can reverse that with an R. So then I get the biggest files at the bottom and the smallest files up top. This can be a little bit difficult to read. So of course you can pass that -h flag and that'll give you it in human readable sizes. So these are all kind of in the range of kilobytes, nothing in the megabyte range in here. If we go back up to say, maybe this images directory, I'll have something that's a little bit larger. LSH. Even these are kind of small enough that they're all coming back as kilobytes, but that'll give you an idea of what you can do around ls. I'm moving through directories just using the cd command, so that works pretty easily. If I want to go into a directory, I can just do cd and then the name of the directory. I'm using tab completion quite a lot here, so I just type A, then I hit tab, and it'll fill in the rest for me. If we go back to that post directory, where we have a bunch of files that have similar starting things. So if I do ls-us, then it'll complete the most common prefix for me. And if I hit tab twice more, at least under bash, it'll tell me kind of what the rest of the completions are that are available to me there. And then as I type the next letter, that's enough to hit tab and get the full completion on it. If you want to go back to the directory you were just in, you can do cd space minus, and that'll go back to the previous directory that you were in. So I could do something like cd root, then I can do cd minus, and it'll take me back to the directory that I was just in. If you are moving between more than 2 directories, you can use pushd. So that's moved me to the root directory, and then I can push the temp. And then I could do like pop d, and it'll move me back to the previous directory. And pop d again, it'll pull another one kind of off the stack and move me back to the original directory. And if I do it one more time, I should get an error because my stack is empty. Another really useful thing inside of the shell is that you can pipe output from one command to another. So I can do things like ls-l, and then I can pipe that into sort-n, I think it's column 4 maybe, or sort-k4, and that will sort by Here we go. And that will do a sort based on the 5th column here. So this, the -n flag tells it to sort numerically, and -k tells it which column to choose to do that sort. So if we were to take the -n out, looks like it's still kind of smart enough to sort by size, just because we have some blanks in the beginning here that end up in the sort. But if we put things like a -h in here, I'm sure that would end up messing it up. Yeah, so it's some kind of odd sorting behavior there because we're sorting alphabetically. And there are like a million different Unix commands that are like this. I won't go through all of them, but I will end with probably the most useful command, and that is man. So man opens up a man page for something. So if I give this man ls, then this is the man page or the manual for the ls command. So you can flip through this and this will tell you what all of the flags are to the command. And sometimes, depending on the manual version, you might end up with some usage down at the bottom. This one doesn't have any kind of usage examples. And perhaps ls is a little bit simplistic for that, but if I did like man, dd has some examples in it. Oh, it doesn't. But this gives you an idea of kind of all the ways to use this particular command. And it's very useful in that way. One final one I will leave you with that I really like to use is alias. So alias will take a command and kind of rename it for you. So I can do something like ll, this is a very common one, is equal to ls-l. So now when I type ll, it's actually just executing this ls-l command here, and you can get pretty snazzy with these and come up with some cool ways of playing with it. So this right now is a shell called bash. This is a pretty common shell, and you're going to get this as your default shell in most Unix systems these days. Another one which I'm starting to see come around a little bit more, and I have been using it lately, is ZSH. So it's kind of same thing here. I have a set of commands installed called omyzsh, which provides some additional ZSH functionality. I wasn't using it to demo today because I've got something in here that's causing it to be super slow, so I haven't investigated yet to see what's happening with that, but it's probably doing something odd with Git when it's rendering the files. Probably play around with that. Yeah, so you can see if I go back to the root directory and type commands, it's very, very quick. But if I drop back to that directory that's in the Git tree, it takes a little bit of time. So it's probably doing some sort of like checking to see if I have the latest version or something like that. But those are just a few handy Unix commands. If there's any others you'd like me to go over, I'd be happy to do so. So just leave a comment below. Remember to like, comment, and share, and we'll see everybody on next week's episode. Bye.